Not So PG. I'm Brooke and my pronouns are she and her.
I'm Matty Mills. My pronouns are he and him. And before we get started, we'd like to acknowledge the custodians of the land on which we record. And for me, that's the Gadigal People of the Eora Nation.
And for me, that's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. All right, Matty, let's get
into it. Oh my God, we have so much to talk about. There's been so much that's happened.
I know. Fuck.
But look at you, back in studio, looking very profesh.
Fresh feels. Feels like I'm at my first day at school.
Well, you know what? It suits you. It suits you with all the not so PG.
I know, there's 11 screens of us right now. Like, as if I weren't sick of you already, I'm now seeing 11 to 12 versions
I
of
feel
you.
like I'm in one of those carnival mazes, the mirror mazes, and I'm just seeing Brooke Blurton everywhere.
Literally. But I always love this photo. It looks bloody good.
Anyone who sees that photo for the first time always has a great reaction. And I forget how much we loved it in the beginning. Like, I loved it so much when I first saw it. Now I'm so used to it. But most people who see that promo pic definitely, they have a good reaction to it. We did well.
Your hair's curly in it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Going through the perm vibe, you know. It's probably the first and last perm that I'll get. I definitely felt like I was in my curly girl era.
Yeah.
And now I'm in my straight boy era.
Oh, you're straight boy
my straight boy era.
And I'm in my soft girl era / silly goose era.
That video you sent me online. Bloody hilarious. But how was your week? You've been here, there and everywhere, shooting in Byron Bay and in Sydney, one night only.
I was in like 3 different states within the week, which is insane to think about. But I had a good week, all settled now into the house.
Yep.
It's a end to a chapter and a start to a new one, which I'm really excited about. But, I mean, it's good because I think the more that I'm by myself and just focus on work, the more clarity I'm feeling with a lot of other things.
Great. That's good.
What about you?
You know, I've had a pretty good week. Like I was on the news desk every day last week. By the end of it, I didn't realise, but I was losing my voice. I only do normally 2 or 3 days a week to read the news. But by the end of it, I walked into studio and I had no voice at one point. Like literally, it was so husky. It was like this. And so it would have been like, hello and welcome to the news. My name's Matty Mills. Like I would have sounded like a gremlin. Anyway, bit of chamomile tea, fix that. But
I'm smashing the tea lately. I'm definitely in my Nana era where every night is a tea rather than a wine because I'm trying to not drink. But I'm dabbling into the teas. I'm enjoying. Like this morning, I had a green tea. I haven't had a green tea for years.
Wow. I love a good green tea, but I also love, there's this beautiful tea, a vanilla and honey tea. It is great.
Vibes.
It is so nice. But anyway, enough about the tea talk. I had a nice busy week.
Spill the tea.
Spill the tea. Yes, let's spill the tea. How about that? But, on the last day of work on Friday, I actually received some really sad news. And it was so weird because I was with you the night before and remember I had 2 missed calls at dinner and I said that I would just answer them later. So one of them was my auntie to inform me about my uncle on my mum's side, and the other call was my brother who was calling me about my auntie on my dad's side. I ended up touching base with family that night and I knew that my auntie probably wasn't going to make it through the night, and I sort of spoke to my dad and my brothers, and my dad was with my auntie and, he was there until her last breath and he was holding her hand. And it's so funny how these things happen though because, she waited.
Can I ask how old she was?
Yeah, she was in her late 50s. So she wasn't
See, that's
I know. So she wasn't very old, but she kept a lot of things to herself. And I don't want to go into too much detail, but she's someone who kept a lot of her hurt and her health problems to herself, and she didn't want anyone to have to take on that burden, and that sort of revealed itself a little bit. But I woke up on Friday morning and I had to do a whole day of filming because I was on the Cook Up with Adam Liao and Gail Marbo. And that was an amazing day, but I woke up to the news that both my auntie and uncle had passed away, and so I sort of had to just decide, that I was going to take on the day, not pull out of these moments, but I really wasn't up to it. Anyway, I sort of pulled myself together and went into studio and filmed the day. But having Gail Marbo there, I just sort of went into fangirl mode. I'm just in awe of that woman and her father and the legacy that he's created for our people. And so I spent the morning just like picking her ear and asking her questions and learning about her family. And it was the most beautiful day because we laughed so much. So I spent the whole day laughing, being an absolute goose on set. But there's also a new host of this show, Nornie, who owns Mabu Mabu in Melbourne. She is incredible too. So, the first episode was with Adam Liao. And we're just, cooking up a storm and laughing. And then, as soon as three blackfellas get together on set, it's like, okay, this is going to run over time because all we're going to do is laugh. And so we just laughed through the day, and that's what got me through it. So, I did have a bit of a, tough end to the week, but it's just, we always talk about this, but it's the absolute, it's really our world, isn't it? It's like you do these amazing things, but there's so much grief and tragedy and trauma and loss in our world constantly that we sort of just have to keep on going, keep on pushing through. We don't get an opportunity to really process. And
I mean, it's just the contrast we continually talk about. Yeah. It's the walking and living in two worlds, three worlds, four worlds, however many worlds you sort of are a part of. It's not uncommon for us to lose our aunties and uncles and grandparents so early. I think the reality of it is that life expectancy is so much younger. And I want to talk about this actually because I want to unpack this just a little bit. I've spoken to ex-partners and I've talked about it on dates, and the conversation and the general consensus is that I have a fear that I will die young and I will get diabetes is very prominent in the community, and I have a big fear of getting it. And drug and substance abuse and mental health problems is a huge one as well. And health problems like heart disease, kidney failure. My nan was on dialysis. So these are the things that you think of, and it's not that I don't live a healthy lifestyle. Obviously, you and I both live a pretty healthy lifestyle, and we try to have that balance of, health, mentally, spiritually, physically. But the reality is, being Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, you are most likely to die young, like by 20 years or whatever the gap is. Like that's what closing the gap was to limit the life expectancy. But has it? I
think with the voice coming up there is an opportunity to remodel that. But in terms of life expectancy, I don't have one family member on my First Nation side that has lasted to 70. Not one.
Yeah, I think I've maybe got a couple of nanas left.
Yeah,
it's sad. And it's hard to think because that's a real reality. And when I talk to people like, my ex-partner about this, he was like, well, no, you have a great lifestyle. You will live till you're, in your 80s, 90s. And I'm like, but I probably won't. Like something could potentially happen. And that's a real reality. And that's what we have to consider and think about in life. And I mean, how many mob also have the finance to cover funerals? And do they have superannuation? That's the thing that we also a lot of the effects from colonization has had on our people is that it didn't set us up. The systems never set us up. And I talk to my brothers about this and about knowing, if I pass away, who's going to take care of what? Because they're the things you're going to consider. I mean, that's pretty, I want to unpack that a little bit more in another episode. We should do a whole episode
on that. And especially,
I think so too.
those closing the gap measures and what they mean and how they've been, how the government has tried to fix some of those issues. But let's talk about the opposite of death and let's talk about love. I went to the Chae tour thanks to you. You unfortunately couldn't make it. It was so funny though. I got off the plane in Melbourne. I was flying down to spend the weekend with Brooke and we were going to, meet at the Chae tour. So I was going straight from the airport. But unfortunately, your plane got cancelled and you couldn't miss the wedding the next day. So you had to leave the tour and you drove straight to the airport, gave me the car and I drove back to the tour by myself.
I know. It was one of those silly sort of sliding door moments, wasn't it?
It all worked out.
It did. I mean, I'm so glad that you went and enjoyed it. I know that I would have loved it, and I'm so glad that I went to the Q&A earlier so that I did get that experience.
Yes.
But I've learned a lot from Chae, and I just know that if I was to ever end up with someone, I want them to be either a female version of him or him.
Oh, you know what?
Move over, Roddy. I'm coming after your man.
No, he's so beautiful.
He's amazing.
Because I obviously follow him a bit, but you follow him almost religiously and love his content. When I got there, I didn't know what to expect, but he was he was just angelic. It was like this sort of angel on stage that was giving you incredible advice for life. And he had so many amazing moments in the show. He had even a gay blind date on stage from two gay men in the audience. It was very cute. But yeah, thank you so much for that. I need to get the book and I want to start reading it because
you got a free book and you left it in my bloody car.
Yeah. But you know what I realized? I thought that maybe I was ready to like look to maybe start dating again. I don't think I am. Absolutely not.
This changes every week and I know that we're sort of, life is not linear and, we're always on these journeys.
Yeah.
And I think the podcast is really reflective of that, of like our thoughts every week to what we're unpacking about ourselves and what we're unpacking about how we feel about people and being in a relationship, things in life that just come up and we just have to deal with them. And that's just life, which I think Not So PG is so reflective of our crazy ass fucking lives.
Oh, it's good.
Especially mine. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm probably in the same boat. I thought I was really ready to sort of put myself out there again. And I easily, like a snail, just withdrew and crawled back into my shell. Yep. And I'm actually staying there. I'm like, actually, I'm not a snail. I'm a turtle. And I'm actually going to get a turtle. I'm buying a turtle.
Oh, so cute. Like a big one or a little
baby one.
Oh, a little baby one.
But I mean, my life is reflective of how I feel. And I think if I was to describe it, it'd be I'm in my shell like a turtle.
Yeah, wow.
I just think I'm obviously in my femme energy. So like I'm drawn to obviously men at the moment. And I'm just like, nah. Yeah. Nah. Yeah. Nah. They're ugly and gross.
Excuse me? Excuse me.
No, I mean, I feel like this new era that I'm in with the new house is I'm being super, super protective of who's actually coming into my space, into my like house. And I'm actually enjoying it. I'm cutting all the things, unnecessary things. I'm not giving out energy that I don't need to. I'm enjoying my little turtle era.
For me, I have a battle of the mind in the sense that like I enjoy being at home alone for a certain amount of time. And then I need like some sort of world interaction. So like my focus, instead of being outside the home, is going to like be more in my house, creating a space that I actually want to be in.
Absolutely. I think that changes the game so much. Like I love being home in my new house. Yeah. I love it. It's warm, it's cozy. And I also think getting other hobbies is really important.
Oh,
to engage in other things that stimulate you, maybe exhaust you in like some way that, you're not so much at home, but when you are at home, you're like, oh my God, this is what I need right now. Your home should be a nest. It should be where you nest, rest, and restore. That's what I say.
I love that. So moving home, how did it all go? Was it an easy move for you? Did it all flow well, or were there some hiccups, speed humps?
Well, you know me. And, I'm a pretty easygoing person and I welcome people into my space all the time and I give people the benefit of the doubt all the time. Mm-hmm. I mean, I lead, I think, a life with love and I can't change that. I mean, I'm really proud that that's one of my traits because, I remember people were generous to me in my life and got me to be in this place. And I think that's how I pay my way back, right? Yep. Let's talk about paying your way back. Okay. Because I'm not going to throw my housemate so far under the bus because that's just not who I am. But I have expressed some concerns and, I've had this conversation with her. So, she's not going to be angry at me for sort of disclosing this. And she doesn't listen to the podcast, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
Do you love that when you talk about someone and you know that they're not listening to the podcast, so it doesn't even matter?
It doesn't matter. I love her. She's been a great housemate and I've been really generous to her and she's been really thoughtful with looking after Cobra with all my travels. But there were just a few things at the end when I was the only one that had moved the whole entire house. Now, I know that I'm only moving into a new house where she's actually moving countries. So I get that. But it was got to a point where I realised that the last housemates that I've had, I've been way too generous to them, way too generous. Some of the stuff that I've done, people that is absurd. Why? And I'm like, well, that's just who I am. I can't, and I'm now nah, screw that, reining it in. it's just like a little bit obnoxious and a little bit stingy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know if it's just because we're First Nations and we're very giving and are very generous in our communities. Like, we share without the offer of it being reciprocated.
And
like,
also we would give our last like $20 if someone needs it, you know.
We would absolutely do that. And I think that's also really prominent in other ethnic communities and cultural backgrounds as well. Like they're just very giving. I know like one of my friends who's Italian, she says, you know, we just do that because that's just how we are. And I feel like COVID, you know, has taught us a lot about some people sort of are more recluse and then some people are very giving. For me, it just taught that like life is too short and I'd rather give.
Yeah.
But to people that actually care about me, and what I've noticed is people just don't reciprocate the same love or care or consideration back.
Yeah.
And they're happy to take and take and take and then take the like one last time and you're like, actually, no.
Yeah. Yes.
To the point where, okay, like when I moved into the house that I was living in, you know, I had 3 bathrooms. And so I bought these like bougie Aesop. You know how expensive Aesop is?
Yeah, $100
like,
each.
Cheap. And I bought the hand balm for each bathroom.
Okay, so that's at least $200 for each bathroom.
That's a lot of money for hand wash.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Each housemate that has moved out of those bathrooms has taken the hand wash and the hand cream.
Because they've claimed them as their own.
Fine line, but do you think that's disrespectful?
I actually think that it's being entitled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like how you came into the bathroom is how you would leave it.
Yeah.
And if it had Aesop hand wash and it was run out, you chuck it in the bin, whatever.
Yeah.
But you don't take it. Like.
But also, it's like they've probably been using your towels too. It's not like they took the towels. You know what I mean? Like it's been a very selective thing to take something like that.
See, I really don't understand. Anyways, it doesn't, like, obviously this is just me being a little bit petty but a little bit frustrated because it got to a point where like I've shouted multiple dinners. I've paid for the cleaner, the steam cleaner, the gardener, everything for this house that my housemate and I have been living in. You know, she has offered to help.
Yeah.
But with the intention for me to tell her what to help with. And that for me is not like you're an adult, like you know what needs to be done. And I packed up that whole house on my own with my own finance, like not asking her for a single thing. And then she had the audacity to ask me for a plant for $200 that was in my pot that she bought for $30. And that was the line drawn. I was like, nah,
wait, what?
That is not happening.
So you're saying that she asked for a plant that she bought for $30 for you to pay her $200 for the plant?
Yeah.
Girl.
I know.
Ooh. Girl, you can't even take that plant overseas. Biosecurity. Anyway.
We love her, but
Bless her.
She's taking the piss. She's taking the piss. And I did have a conversation with her and, you know, we've nutted it out. So I know she wouldn't be too upset if she heard this. But I literally just told her that she was taking the piss.
Yeah. Send her a money tree. You know, one of those little ones? Yeah. A little going away gift. Going away gift is the money tree.
Maybe the card that I give her for her goodbye present is just a plant.
No, you know what you should do? Fill an Aesop bottle with
I'm being
Palmolive.
petty. It's being petty. I'm being petty. But
yeah,
I mean,
we do love her. She's a great gal.
We do love her. Yeah. But yeah, we understand that people's personalities are just so different. Yeah. And this is what takes me to my next point. Like I realized that I just want to live alone. I don't want to have to deal with that drama, that pettiness, like of, you know, because I'm just very giving for my housemates. Like when they moved in, I got them like a little mug, a little gift, a little gift card. I was like, you know, welcome. Like I can't wait for this little girl community. I was so, you know, and not that I do it with any type of reciprocation, but it's just, yeah, it goes to show, you know, people are so different, personalities are different, and I am so glad to be in a house by myself. But all of the housemates that I've had have been so varied. Like I much prefer living with a very FIFO lifestyle person.
Yeah.
I love when I'm by myself.
I can't live with anyone, to be honest. I obviously lived with my partner for 6 years, and then I knew that I was never going to be able to share a house with someone because I love my space. I love my things how I like them. And I also would prefer to sacrifice paying that extra rent. I pay a lot of money for, a one-bedroom apartment in Sydney. The rental crisis here is crazy. But that little sacrifice of not having to split the rent, I think that that's going to give me a better lifestyle than having to worry about someone else living in my space and compromising. Oh, God, compromise. Something I need to work on.
All right. Well, have you had housemates before then?
I have. I lived in Perth. Well, I lived in Perth for a year, and that was my first experience of having housemates out of school. And I lived with 5 people. 5 blackfellas too, so you can imagine how wild that house was in Mount Lawley. We had a great time, but it was a lot of, disagreements, and there was a lot of untidy people, and you just wanted to be like, can you make your fucking bed? I'm walking past your room and it just looks stanky, girl.
Oh, I hate that.
And so and then I came back to Sydney and I lived with my best friend Oliver. And we shared a 2-bedroom apartment in Leichhardt, and we were so poor that I was on such a shitty salary at Channel 9 when I was 19 years old that we got a couch off the side of the road to be our couch and didn't even have proper cushions. And so we lived that real uni lifestyle, poor, like you were always cooking pasta because it was,
like character building, sorry.
Yeah, character building. But we knew that was like very temporary. So we lived there for like 6 months. And then I moved into a massive, beautiful home in Stanmore with 3 of my best friends. So Emily, Zara and Ollie. And we had this massive mansion, which cost like $1,500 a week. And we all just split it. And it was like a beautiful bougie house that we didn't really know how to look after because we were also young and inexperienced. And so, but it was beautiful. And then from that, I basically met my partner and lived with my partner. So I've always lived with someone, right? And I got to the point at the end of last year when I broke up with Paulie that I was like, no, I'm not going back into that world of having to compromise with a housemate. Like I can compromise with a partner, but not with a housemate. No.
I agree. Because I just can't deal with the disgustingness. Like I've heard of housemate horrors and I'm just like, nah, I can't do it. I was so lucky that the girls that I lived with were very career driven and were, very convenient for looking after Cobes when I would travel in and out. So I wasn't really there and making sure that the house was good. So like I like that lifestyle of someone who's tidy, but the housemate horrors, like leaving toenail clippings everywhere, or like not,
that's gross.
Scrubbing the toilet, or when they fucking don't make their bed, or the washing machine shit stays in the washing machine for hours. Like I just can't deal with that. Like obviously we both grew up in poverty. The horror story of that is enough.
Because of that, growing up in that sort of life,
household,
cannot have a dirty house. If I walk through my front door and there's something that is just like, whether it's washing in the dryer that is dry that needs to be put away, that will stick in my brain until I do it. So I just get onto it.
Amen.
I'm someone
I was the only one that was like that.
No. I literally, like my apartment has to be clean. And you remember when you came and stayed with me, like the house was always like, it's almost like.
It was kind of
like a display home.
Sterile.
Yeah, totally. Like a display home. Like everything is in place, right?
Yeah.
And that's just
people say that lots about my house. It's a bit of a display home.
But I like to just look at a space because it makes me feel like I've got my shit together if it looks put together. I just couldn't deal with a housemate. I don't think I would have one anytime soon.
I think about also like how it would be living with a partner again. And I think the more I stay single, the more I think that my next relationship, I think we would definitely be living apart for a very long time before the thought of moving in would be a consideration.
Yep.
And we spoke about this, like in one of the other episodes about like when is moving in too much. And, we've also had the experience of doing that irrational thing of like moving in quickly and
before you even know them.
Easy.
Before you even
and you just
really know them.
figure it out. Yeah. And I just don't think that's going to happen for me ever again for a very long time. Because I think people just, you know, when they meet me, I think they sort of glamorize our life because I have all my shit together and some people that I'm meeting or like dating just don't.
Oh my God, do you want to know what someone said to me literally on the dance floor at a club? You just reminded me. They literally pulled me up. It's this guy who's he's very handsome and we've run into each other a couple of times recently. And he goes to me, and we've only just started following each other on social, and he goes to me, I didn't realize how much you had your shit together because he only ever sees me out. And then I said, and he goes, because he's following me on social and he's seeing sort of work and that perception of, I said to him, don't believe everything you see. I said, social media is a lie. Like, they have this perception that, like, you're so put together because you got a good job or, you know, you have, like, from Monday to Friday you work hard. And it's like, there's this perception out there that I have my shit together, and I'm like, girl.
The shit that happens to you in places like clubs is funny.
It's so funny. So speaking of nightclubs, this weekend I ran into my ex on the dance floor at a club. And it was the first time we've seen each other out since we broke up. Oh my God, it was all the emotions. But you know what's so like unbelievable about this moment? He goes, he was like, Matty. And I looked at him and I didn't realize it was him. I thought it was just somebody saying my name. And so I just looked through him and kept walking. And then he stops me again and was like, Matty, Matty. And then I realized who it was.
Oh my God.
I know.
So was it awkward? Like,
no.
What happened?
I was so happy to see him. I know this sounds like super like, oh, yuck. But I was so happy.
I can see Maddie going into a montage of memories.
Yes. And it all happened. And I was like, where's Cosmo? But no, it was actually like a really nice moment. I mean, I wasn't in the best state of mind because it was like at this point, it was actually 2 a.m. So, and
you just got some big news
that's
over
right.
the weekend.
So I was sort of like, to be honest, sort of eliminating all the grief by going out and hanging out with my friends, you know, and just having like positive time. And it was that point of the night where I was ready to go home anyway. But we had a really good conversation, and it's so difficult because when I ran into him, he thought that the person I was with was my partner, and he absolutely wasn't. Like, he's a friend of mine. And so he said to me, he's like, oh, I think your partner is getting, you know, a bit worried or, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, that is not my partner. So he in his head thought that the friend that I was out with was my partner. And even throughout the night.
Do you let them just think that, or did you correct him?
I squashed that straight away. And I squashed it because this person absolutely is not my partner. And I just don't want that out there in the world either. Like that perception that, like, he was my partner, I just didn't like. And anyway, so I introduced Paulie to my friend, and I was like, my friend has a boyfriend. So I was like making sure that I was talking about the boyfriend and like to really cement that this guy actually isn't my partner.
So you didn't have to do that, but because you were you being you, you felt like you needed to. And that's also like, I mean, you didn't have to. You could have just been like, hey, how are you? Good. Okay, bye. And then see you later. But, you know, you guys had that moment.
Yeah.
You chatted. If it didn't end so well, could you have been civil?
Well, I think the reality is that my ex and I will always be civil. And the reason is because, and this sounds like I know like yucky, but we love each other, right? And no matter if we're together or we're not, that love, I feel, won't go anywhere. No matter how long it is or whatever, like we have a lot of respect for each other. We have a lot of love for each other. So if in that moment, I realized as well that, like, even though it's been like 7 months since we broke up, we still have so much respect for each other. And like we took the time that night. We had a conversation for like half an hour. Like, we went and sat and we spoke and we caught up properly. And we were like the whole time just telling each other how like proud we were of each other and like how much we love to see each other happy. And so, you know, like there's definitely no hard feelings between us. And I think that comes down to the amount of respect we have for each other. We were together for so long that we know each other more than anyone else. You know what I mean? So it was a difficult one though, because I started crying and I felt like I got so emotional and I was crying and I was like, why is this happening right now? I felt like... Because
you're dealing with so much.
I am,
There's so many layers to what's happened that week and that weekend particularly. Like, I couldn't even imagine if I was to run into... I don't know, like if I just lost my auntie and uncle and then I was to run into fucking David for any, like, I don't know what I would do. I really don't know what I would do. I mean, I credit you for being super civil and I think also in the wise words of Jay Shetty is that you can love someone but you don't have to necessarily be with them.
Love
you
them
can
from
love
afar.
someone. Exactly. And I think people have such a hard time with separation from a relationship. And I think if it's not toxic and it's oh, well, that person, and I know that hurt happens, but I also think, if you do your own healing, you can compartmentalize and you can detach from something and you don't have to hold on to anger and energy like that. You can still love a person in the relationship that you had in moments, but you don't have to be I think that's really powerful if you can look at it from that lens. And I think it's more powerful for your own healing, your own growth to separate the relationship to the person.
Yeah, I also think that people expect once you break up to sort of have these negative emotions attached to it. We just don't have that. Obviously, there was a lot of sadness, obviously, but we don't see each other in this yucky light. We actually want the best for each other. And knowing that about what he wants for me and what I want for him, it's that's why we can have those civil great convos.
Yeah. I mean, can you give someone a tip to how you got to that? I guess.
You know what? It comes down to, it really comes down to how much respect and love you have for someone. And putting all the, the things that might have gone wrong in the relationship, once it's ended, putting them to the side because you're not dealing with that anymore, but you still have love and respect for that person. So for us, I think that we authentically got to a point where we knew that the relationship couldn't go on any longer because of certain elements to our relationship that just weren't working. And instead of trying to make something happen that wasn't going to happen and become toxic, we ended it before it got there.
Yeah. And I think separating is the most important part is your relationship and then there's that person.
Yeah.
I mean, there's toxicity as well. And I think, forgiveness is a huge thing. But I think, if you can forgive people, that's a really huge superpower.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is very powerful. I know that my adopted dad said that one of the best traits that my mum obviously now being passed on, was to forgive people who continually hurt her and was to sort of separate the person. And I think that's one of my biggest things now that I've carried from her is being able to forgive people regardless of the situation and their addiction or situation. I can separate it and be well, they were a good person and they are a good person, but, look at all the things that have happened to them and looking past that. I think that carries a lot of empathy, but I think also a lot of healing within myself. I mean, I love all of my exes dearly. And I think, if I was to ask them to go to coffee, I think there would be majority of them that would absolutely say yes. And I think there's a fair few that I wouldn't gain anything from it. Yeah. And I think that's the more important thing is being what is the gain? You had a beautiful relationship or it didn't work out. That's okay. Move on, compartmentalize. But I just feel drunk situations are always a recipe for disaster.
Well, it might have been a little bit emotional, but the funny thing is talking about catching up with exes, straight after the pod today, I'm going to catch up with my ex and Cosmo. So I will report back next week. I'll report back next week how it went.
Guys, so Maddie's reporting back and how that goes. Yep. Okay, we'll go 50 that they're getting back together, 50
No.
friends.
That's not on the cards. It's absolutely not on the cards. And it's not on the cards for a good reason. For a good reason. It's not because we don't love each other. It's just because we can't be together.
I know. I think it's beautiful what you guys have. I think I'm really it's very admirable, the friendship and the love and the respect that you both have.
The park is just across the road from my house and I'm not letting him inside my house because you never know what goes down behind closed doors.
You never do that. The rekindle, the makeup sex, the after.
Definitely not.
But also,
we're just
on
catching
that note,
up to
how good is breakup sex?
Yeah, we definitely haven't done that since we've broken up. So there you go. Okay, so it is May and I turn 28 in literally 3 weeks. I'm super excited for my birthday, but it's always been my plan, and I'm 2 years away from it, that I wanted babies before I was 30.
Before?
Or
Why before 30?
So not before 30, but when I'm 30, that's when I want to start the process. So I have 2 years to get my shit together to bring a child into this world. And I'm going to do it.
I don't doubt you. Yeah. I've also been thinking about my life, and I mean, we're the same age. I'm 30 in a couple of years too, and I've been thinking about what I want to experience in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And I've taken a little bit of a different direction. This year is about all my sort of creative energy, so diving into things that I've never really done before, like, acting and more speaking and traveling. And so I look at that and I think, wow, the person that I was, in 2021, The Bachelorette, was so like certain of herself, and I still am. That hasn't changed, but I also was so certain of the things that I wanted in life, and I wanted to find someone, and I wanted to start this process of having a baby.
Yeah.
And we David and I openly were trying. And, that's another story that we've definitely unpacked in another episode. So go check that one out because I'm not explaining it on here. And I was really excited about that journey. And then obviously our relationship didn't work. And I'm very thankful that, it kind of got to a head like that. But the having children part, so it's quite emotional for me because one of the things that I've always really, really been passionate about and really always wanted was to have my own children. Mm-hmm. And that comes from being a very maternal person. That's just a part of my personality. That's who I am. That's why I'm also very so mothering and caring and generous with my friends, my family, my community. I just know that that's not going to happen in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
I'm very, very, with the things that I've got going on, I think for the next 5 years, that's really not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I have to be realistic.
Yeah.
I have to be really, really realistic with things. And I always look ahead. I'm trying to, be present and in the moment and just live day by day. But I do think ahead. And I think one of the things that I have to be realistic about is what kind of partner I'd like to be with for a certain amount of time before children even become a thing to think about. And that's not going to happen for, I guess, a minimum of 5 years. So I'm in my prime fertility right now, and I've really considered freezing my eggs.
Yeah, okay. Wow.
I mean, I also have considered, a donor, and we've joked about this plenty of times on the podcast if I don't find someone.
My hand is up here like this. Pick me, my lord. Pick me, number 3, my lord.
I think, and I actually I'm 99% that I would love that as an opportunity for my children to have a black mom and a black dad that just love one another, but, also have a beautiful friendship. And I mean, I'm happy being a single mom. I think, I know that it wouldn't be that easy.
Goals. We'd have the most beautiful little child, and then they would have 2 amazing parents, and then their parents who partners come into their world would love them as well. I'm like, yeah, I'm all for it.
You know what we should do one day? We should find an app that merges our faces to see what our child would potentially look like.
You do realise that somebody already said this to me. They said, because you and Brooke are so beautiful, if you had a child, it would come out ugly. That's what they said.
No.
I'm like, I wonder what that would look like. We should find an app for sure.
But this is, and what made me come to this decision is just obviously realizing where I am at in life.
Yeah.
And career. I think career is the focus at the moment, and I think all of those things will come, but not in the next 5. And I think it's really important to know, we know Rachel Corbett, and she's done it on her own, and I think she's so admirable.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I love the steps she's taken to decide and openly decide that that's what she wanted to do, and she's okay with that. I think she's also really stuck with me with the mindset of that I can do it. I know that I can. I treat my own dog like my own child. He's so well loved and so well behaved. Like I know that dogs and children don't compare, but like
no, totally.
You know,
I get it.
I think in the next couple of years, I'm going to consider this as an option because I obviously am in that high fertility right now, and I think this would be the best opportunity to do so because who knows, 5 years can turn into 10 years and I might not be in that space anymore. And I think that's a beautiful aspect of science now and the progression of that because we can do that. And I think, with everything that's happening and the problems that women are having with endometriosis and PCOS and, cysts on ovaries, I've been really lucky that I haven't had too many issues down that line.
Yep.
But I can only imagine that, in time as I get older and, my body becomes a bit more. Yeah. And I think these are things that women consider. And I think a lot more women are taking that approach of just doing it by themselves and not feeling like, fuck the patriarchy. We don't need a man to take care of us. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I feel like there was this mentality that women needed to find this men to have these babies and that, they need to sort of reproduce and it's like there's science.
Well, you know what my one concern is that in my head I actually visualize doing it myself in terms of not waiting for a partner. And the reason I don't want to wait for a partner is because when it's two men, you have to have the conversation about whose sperm it is. And it's like, I remember having this conversation with my ex. I always felt like if we were to have a child, it would have been his sperm. And I was never like fully okay with that because I wanted it to be biologically my child. Even though if it wasn't, I would still love it the same way. Yet I do want my child to be biologically mine. So in my head, I feel like I will do it without waiting for a partner. And
truly.
And then, that partner can come along and get two for the price of one.
Absolutely. I know as well that I would much rather, if I was to get a donor, that it would be someone who was First Nations. I think for me that's really important for me to carry out, my culture and their culture, whoever, the donor is as well.
I mean, if we were to go down the line of
Go on,
of donating, are we going to pay the $20,000 it costs, or we're just going to get in the bedroom and
I mean, I've got beautiful nieces that my two friends who are a same-sex couple who I played rugby with, they turkey. Is it turkey baster? Yeah.
And did it work?
They did the old it worked twice.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, they wanted.
That's how easy
they got
it
a
is?
donor. Yeah, they got a donor. Fresh, then and there, did it, and they had luck. And she is so beautiful.
Oh my life, that is the most beautiful thing ever.
And, they did the screening of like, do you have any health problems or what do your grandparents look like, etc. But, more or less like less official,
What do your grandparents look like?
Yeah, like they like could fit it all out and everything. And
so
I
like,
was
show me your family tree, take me back to your community.
Yeah.
Oh, deadly.
Yeah. I mean, this is exciting. I feel like to consider in the next couple of years. It's on my list to do. I've got lots of travel, I guess, in the next 5. So I feel like, it's really good to think about these things, and I think like I'm going to be very single for a little while.
I also like the idea, right? If I donate my sperm to a friend or have a baby with a friend, that it's 50% of the time and responsibility. It's a very dad thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah, no, but like, the first half is obviously a lot from the women, like the woman, or like,
But then as they grow up, they have 2 homes, 2 like families. Like how amazing. I just think it's like if I was a kid and I was getting brought into the world, I would see this as like an asset, not like a broken family, It's like a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I think that's the beauty of also being First Nations, and if you were to carry out the culture, is that they have double the community of people that would look after them, and like that's when a baby is born in community, in a First Nations community, that baby is passed around to all of the aunties and all of the uncles, they have that exposure, that sensory to being in other people's arms. And I think that that's one of the beauties that I grew up with, and I feel like so lucky that I had that as a child, even though I don't really remember it, but knowing that that's what I would want for my children. Totally. And it's just such a consideration as well. Also, just a little side note, which I'm going to like talk about next episode. Ooh. I'm getting my land back.
Girl. All right, well, let's end it there. That's a fucking cliffhanger.
I know, yeah. Wait till next episode. It should all be confirmed and I will unpack it.
Okay. Well, that's all we have time for today, you guys. Make sure you tune in next week. Thanks for listening to Not So PG. If you love us, leave us a 5-star rating and a little review.
And if you want to tell us something, follow us on socials and slide into the old DMs. My handle is Brooke.Blend and Maddie's is at It's Maddie Mills. And you can follow all of the Nova Podcast action over at Nova Podcast Official. All right.
Bye. Oh, harmony.